TheJamies.net.
We sailed on the Carnival Venezia for 7 nights in December 2024. During our cruise, we had the privilege to sit down with Lee Mason, who served as the ship's cruise director during our voyage. Lee is a fleet cruise director for Carnival Cruise Line and has twice been named Best Cruise Director in the Porthole Cruise and Travel Magazine Reader's Choice Awards. He was also honored as the St. Jude Ambassador of the Year in 2023. During our chat, he shared his personal experiences and insights working for Carnival. Just a quick note that if you enjoy this video, please give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. It really helps our channel. And consider subscribing so you get alerted when we add new videos.
My name is Lee Mason. I'm currently a cruise director or covering cruise director aboard Carnival Venezia, but I'm a fleet cruise director for Carnival Cruise Line. My current role on the ship, I am the ambassador of fun. I'm the face and voice of not only the guest experience, but also the crew on board. I lead guests towards what fun is. And that's different for everyone. Fun for somebody could be singing on the karaoke every single night, so I need to let them know where they can sing. Fun for someone else is food. And I got to talk about all of the dining options. For our families, it's our Dr. Seuss story time, or the other youth programs and activities, shore excursions, you name it. I'm the glue that kind of puts all of those bricks of fun together and then points out the opportunities. I also mentor, train and develop the Fun Squad. So I'm their direct supervisor and I'm helping to coach, guide and mold the future generations of cruise directors for this company. And then in my wider function as fleet cruise director, I go from ship to ship, supporting the teams. I have 9 ships that report into me. The cruise directors will reach out if they've got questions, if they just need confirmation, or maybe a little more specific support. I'll do ship visits, so I'll go on for a cruise here, 2 days there, just 1 day somewhere else. When we're on stage hosting, because that's a large part of the job as cruise director, you can't always see what your show looks like. Where the lights are set on the stage, you don't always hear what it sounds like from the audience. So having a visit from a fleet cruise director is great, because you've got that person that shares your experience, but stood in the back of the room, looking at what's happening, hearing your jokes, feeding back what the audience have responded to. Also, like I said, the Fun Squad report into the cruise director. So having this fleet cruise director support means that I could go and visit his ship and be a second opinion and solidify the feedback that hosts are receiving from their current leadership. I support, I celebrate, I champion, spotlight, if you will, but never I'm not coming to audit or catch someone out. My 9 ships that report into me directly, they don't have the same geographical relevance. They're not even the same class. So I've got a spread of ships from the West Coast to all up the East Coast. I've been really lucky. I've worked Alaska, Australia, East Coast, West Coast. I've crossed the Atlantic, the Pacific. I've been to Singapore, everything and anything in between. I've also worked as cruise director on every class of ship we have, apart from the fantasy class. So when I applied for the fleet cruise director job, that was a big pedestal that I put forward. I got the Dream, the Firenze, the Liberty, the Legend, Mardi Gras, Paradise, Sunshine. Did I say Venezia? No, Venezia and Vista. I nailed it. Those ships I'm responsible for. But with the cruise director schedule, there are different cruise directors that will serve on those ships. So rather than managing people or talent as like a personal coach, I'm just responsible for the vessel. So I'm familiar with the program, the itinerary, the hotel director, and then I can do my best to support the cruise director as and when they're assigned. I was born at a very early age. No, I am from Barrow-in-Furness in Cumbria in the United Kingdom. It's a small industrial town in the northwest of England. It's on the west coast. It looks across to the Isle of Man, and I suppose Belfast would be the nearest city in Ireland if you're going across the water. The town itself, it's industrial. It's got a huge shipyard, and we make submarines. I say we, I've never made a submarine in my life, but that's the town's main business. Growing up, I loved the arts. I loved theatre, and being an industrial town, it's not quite a hub for the arts. So as I started to pursue that vocation, I had to leave the town. So I started out by going to a college about 45 minutes away from my hometown in a place called Kendal, which is on the doorstep of the Lake District. They've got a famous candy bar, you'd call it. It's called Kendal Mint Cake. It's like a mint patty, almost like a York peppermint patty, but firmer. It's like sugar-based, mint-infused, covered in chocolate. So I went there, I studied for 2 years there, and then I moved to just outside London, Buckinghamshire, to go to university. I studied musical theatre, acting, singing, dancing, before working in London for a little while. I worked for Madame Tussauds, the famous wax museum, as a part of their entertainment team. Now, as a tourist attraction, wax figures, as they call them, they are entertaining, but they're fairly lifeless. So they employ entertainers to bring a little life and energy to the attraction. So I worked both in the main attraction, on the Pirates of the Caribbean set, dressed as a pirate, full costume, sword, and one of my favorite things to do was stand very still between Johnny Depp and Orlando Bloom, and people would come in and they'd be like, Johnny Depp, Orlando Bloom, who's this guy? And it would just make me laugh on the inside because people were like, oh, no, he's from the third movie, it's this one. So they'd come to have a photograph with me and put their arm around me and be like, because of course I was kind of soft and warm, and people would freak out. And then I'd move, I'd be like, keep moving this way, which was fun. But the best job I've had, apart from being a cruise director, was working in their Chamber of Horrors. So they have a scare attraction down in the basement where all of the like gruesome historical figures are. And I got to be one of the scare actors in there, scaring the life out of tourists. And it was so rewarding to be a fairly inoffensive 5'7" little guy, but to put on this character, to step into these like terrifying shoes. It was incredible just to scream and shout at people and scare the daylights out of them. So I did that for a year before finishing my theatrical training in New York City. I went to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York, known as AMDA. Following my graduation from AMDA, I lived in New York for a year, and I lived the life of a struggling artist. I think it's a rite of passage. I just graduated. I was a moderate talent. I wasn't quite going to hit Broadway. It's fresh out of school. So I did a few like fringe projects, small theatrical stuff, nothing to really write home about, nothing landmark. And when my visa expired, because as a student, I was offered 1 extra year for optional professional training, gaining experience in my field of study, I had to return to the UK. I immediately started looking for work, found work in Europe, working for a hotel resort company on the island of Majorca. It's a Spanish island, singing and dancing in their nightly shows. So I worked 6 nights a week doing cabarets and song and dance productions, somewhat similar to our playlist productions, but nowhere near as talented and a lot lower tech. But it was a great life, and it was such a brilliant experience at a young age as well. After that, I worked in Hong Kong for a year for an entertainment and events company, doing everything from theatrical productions to shopping mall activations and installations, private parties, corporate functions. There was no event too big or small for this company. And I think it really lay a foundation for the work that I do today. I was responsible for writing, directing, costuming, casting these productions, and also being in them. I did a year out there, but as a young creative, I was always looking for what's next, what's the next opportunity. I returned to the UK and needing work, I went back out to Mallorca to do one more season because it was super fun and I had friends out there. Then I did a touring production around the UK with a children's theatre company. And then through that same company, I was offered a job as a regional entertainment manager. They were outsourced as the entertainment provider for Diamond Resorts International, which I sometimes get confused with Diamonds International, the jewelry company. Diamond Resorts International are a timeshare company. They've got resorts all around the world, but we had 5 of their sites in the UK that I was responsible for hiring, firing, training, and maintaining the standards and going from site to site, supporting their entertainment team. Fairly small teams. Again, laying a foundation for the work that I do today. It was through that work that I then transitioned to work on cruise ships. I worked for a small cruise company called Cruise and Maritime Voyages. They don't currently sail. They went out of business during the pandemic, unfortunately. I started out in their shows, singing and dancing, and then transitioned over to be assistant cruise director and cruise director with a team that deliver like the light daytime. Well, it's not just daytime, it's night, it's all the time entertainment. But I learned a lot of my lessons there. The cruise director for that company was the head of the entertainment department as well. So I was responsible for the show team, the orchestra, the technicians, you name it. Following that, I moved over to Carnival Cruise Line in 2016, but because I'd already been promoted to and working as a cruise director, I transitioned over as a lateral move and started with Carnival as a cruise director. I started on the Valor. I've worked on 13 ships since, and it's been 8 years so far. The most rewarding part of working on a cruise ship is an ever-evolving reward, if I'm honest with you. I think a lot of people come into the job for the travel opportunities and travel prospects. Maybe they're not looking to make a long-term career out of it. And then I think the intoxicating element of this job is the people, the friendships you make, both with your fellow crew members and the guests that cruise regularly, those people that you grow familiar with. And as an entertainer, getting to stand on that spotlight, stand on that stage and host iconic game shows. Family Feud Live is America's favorite TV game show, right? It's also a global franchised TV game show. I grew up watching that, and I get to host that on our ships, Deal or No Deal. Another captivating TV production that we host a live version of on board. So artistically, it is incredibly fulfilling. Personally, making friends and connections, learning about people. Our crew on this ship come from over 60 different nations. And even silly things like learning how to say to people, "How are you?" and see them light up that you're making an effort with their language. There's a Filipino dish. It's like a fast food chain or franchise called Jollibee. And our chefs will sometimes emulate one of the dishes from Jollibee. It's a spaghetti dish, right? I love it. And to tell our Filipino crew members, like, I love Jollibee spaghetti, it's a bond that I would never have been able to establish if I didn't work on a cruise ship. I've been able to travel to Indonesia and have crew friends message on Facebook and say, "Where are you? You need to see this, go here. Do you need a ride?" Like, what? To have friends from around the United States to be able to connect with, that's really special. And as I mentioned earlier, this job has taken me all around the world. I've seen Asia, I've seen Australia, I've been down to Fiji. I cruised Europe, the Baltic Sea, Iceland, the Norwegian fjords. I've cruised into Montreal, Canada. I've been in the other side through Vancouver and Victoria. I've seen Alaska, Hawaii. I cruised the Amazon River. These are places that, were I working what many people would regard as like a regular job, I'd have saved for years. I'd have worked for years and taken maybe a week, 2 weeks every year to go and visit these places. And I've been able to do it on a weekly basis for on average like 9 or 10 months out of the year for the last 8 years. And I'm so lucky, so lucky. My mum often said to me, like, if this was a widely acknowledged career opportunity when she was younger, she wishes she could have done it. But growing up, it was just watching Julie McCoy on the Love Boat. The most challenging part of working on a cruise ship, and being very honest with you, is the human condition, right? From a guest aspect, everybody goes on vacation with the highest of expectation. And every guest in their own personal journey is rightly the most important person on the ship, or their children are, or their loved ones are. But this ship, this cruise has just under 5,000 very important people, each and every single one of them the main character in their own story. And we're sharing this space. Also, with high expectation, sometimes comes a little compromise. If you've never been on a cruise before, maybe you come in not knowing what you expect it to be. Or maybe you've watched countless videos on YouTube and you think you know what it's going to be, but reality can sometimes be a little different. Maybe the weather isn't great. Maybe, I don't know, that event that you saw on the internet, you thought was going to be on your ship, but for whatever reason, it's not, through the itinerary length, through, you know, what cruise ship it was, what cruise line it was. So disappointment is a very real emotion. And as cruise director, I'm responsible for picking up the pieces if life, as it inevitably does, sometimes throws us a curveball. Also, being a part of a multicultural crew, being able to negotiate or to compromise on communication styles or social expectations, that is challenging, like on a really human level. I'm really proud that at Carnival, I think we've got it. The crew are, in my experience, brilliant. And we all get along, and on the very rare occasion that people don't, we work it out. It's both challenging, but also really rewarding on the other side of it, if that makes sense. One of the most challenging things as a crew member that maybe passengers aren't aware of is that we work largely 7 days a week for our entire contract, which could be anything from 3 up till 9 or maybe 10 months. And while, we work in service, and yes, we have jobs that from the outside looking in look like they're just fun. It takes hard work. We have that like energetic battery that does sometimes get depleted, that social battery that gets depleted, and life goes on when we're not at home. We all have family, whether it's partners and spouses or parents, grandparents. We miss out on big life milestones, birthdays, anniversaries, and sometimes even births and deaths. There's challenging situations with things that maybe people like, really? But pets or graduations, social firsts, children's first steps, friends getting jobs, friends moving away. That level of sacrifice, while it's on the surface acknowledged, the crew are away, the deeper human side of that sometimes isn't always considered, that the crew aren't robots. They're people. They wear a name tag and they're in a uniform and we've got a job to do, but they are people. And sometimes that's easy to miss when you're here for 7 days, when you're here for 4 days, and you just want the best out of your cruise. You want absolutely everything to go without a hitch, and everyone to be the epitome of hospitality and to treat you like a king or a queen or whatever you want to be treated like. To realize that that person is also a human and they're sharing in that moment. I think that's very simple and would appear to be obvious, but I think is easy to overlook. And I do it. I go to the grocery store, or I'm checking in for my flight at the airport. And sometimes I even check myself and I'm like, So I try to connect with, if I'm checking in at the airport, it's not because I want a free upgrade. It's because I just want to ask Stephen how he's doing, how his day was, what time did he start? And one thing that I've learned is from being on this side of it and coming into my interactions with other people that work in hospitality or service, that when you acknowledge that there's a human serving you, oh my word, the service, it levels up. And not because of special treatment or freebies, but it's because you're two people sharing in an exchange rather than one person receiving a service. People often ask me, how do you make the most out of your vacation? And the one thing that I would say is invest in the crew and the reward will be tenfold. And whether it's the fun squad and connecting with them and engaging at their trivias, even if you've played the trivia before, don't make it about the trivia. Don't make it about the prize, the ship on a stick. Make it about that host, that person. Get to know them, support them, cheerleader them. And oh my word, they'll love you. You love them, they love you. Then you're walking down the hallway and it's great to see you. Whether it's your server in the restaurant and you just take that moment, they're busy, they've got a lot of tables, but you just take that snapshot of time to connect with them and know who they are. And when they come to your table, they're serving friends. I'd say patience. My mum says it all the time to people, that I've developed a level of patience and tolerance that she regards as being somewhat superhuman. We all have our moments. I'm human. And I can definitely tell you moments where I've let myself down. But you remember those times, right? That's a skill as well. Patience is a practice. Patience is like a muscle. And the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. Spontaneity. Studying acting, improv was definitely something I enjoyed, but I think it's also a life skill. Fluidity, flexibility, spontaneity, it's all the same thing. And being able to be present in a moment, see, no matter what your intention is, to see way things are unfolding and to be able to either go with the flow or pivot to bring things back on track is not just an entertainment skill. I think it's a life skill. So often my friends or family members, they talk about things that are frustrating them, and often it's out of their control. And I know I sound like I'm a monk giving some sort of sermon, but one thing that I've learned, like, if you can't control it, let it go. You can acknowledge it as well. Acknowledging something is going wrong or went a little south or unexpected doesn't mean that you are ultimately accountable for it. But sometimes we all need to just go, oh, well, that was surprising. We acknowledge that it happened, and then we move on. The Fun Squad, we used to play a game where you would clench one of their medallions between your butt cheeks, waddle towards the cup and drop it. I even surprised myself at the level of accuracy I've got at pooping a medallion into a cup. I am a sharpshooter. If that was an Olympic sport, I could represent the UK, and I'm sorry, America, we would win. How could I not mention what I've dubbed as the bum race? So you sit on the floor, you lift your heels off the ground, and you've got to bounce, and you bop, kind of like a space hopper, but without your feet on the floor. So you're just on your butt and you bounce up and down. And if you pull your heels in while they're off the ground, momentum will propel you forward. And for a little while, I used to challenge other cruise directors or Fun Squad hosts to what I've called the bum race. I think it can be seen on YouTube. Be careful what you search, but yeah, it's out there. That might be the one thing I'm better at than the butt medallion thing. It's so hard when you've seen so much. It is so hard to choose just one port because there is so much to enjoy all around the world. But my highlights, can I take 3 or 4? It's so difficult. Of this itinerary that we're currently on, Mahogany Bay, Roatan, I said it in a VT package for the cabin TVs. Mahogany Bay, I just love that you can step off the ship, you can get on that magic carpet chairlift, be dropped off at the beach. And what's magical for me is that you can be in the water and have a selfie of you in the sea with the ship behind you. It's the same at Half Moon, which is stunning. I only went to Half Moon quite recently. I'd been in the company 8 years and I just never worked an itinerary with it. And it was in my last contract as cruise director full time that I went to Half Moon, and I got to experience the magic that everyone spoke about. As a crew member, when you're working a water shuttle port, that tends to be the day that a lot of us stay on board. And it was Half Moon, it was water shuttles, and I was like, I don't know if I'll go out. And Geraldine, my fiance, said, you've got to go. Go at least once. And I'm so glad I did. Shamelessly, I went out underprepared because I was just going for a walk. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. So I just went out in my polo shirt, shorts, sneakers. I went walking along the beach and I kept walking. I left the crowds behind. And all of a sudden I found myself on just this stretch of sand. I felt like Robinson Crusoe. And I thought, I'm going to go in the sea. So I snuck off into the bushes. I put my sneakers, took my socks off, took my shorts. I went in the sea in my boxer shorts. Other ports that I've loved, I couldn't not mention Alaska. I think it's a bucket list adventure. And it is an adventure. The things to do there, whether it's seaplanes, helicopters, whether it's sledding, it's out of this world. Hawaii is on the bucket list of so many people, and Australia. Sydney, Australia, the home port, to be docked between the Opera House and the bridge. I've said it 1,000 times, but it's true and it's from the heart. Those are iconic global landmarks that are up there with the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the Eiffel Tower, the Great Wall of China. I put them as those huge, feats of architecture and engineering. They're there. And our ship, when it's in Sydney, docks between those two landmarks. It was magical, coupled with the fact that the central banking district is right there. So as a crew member, you hop off the ship and you walk for 5 minutes and you're at restaurants and shops. And there's a tram system now that you can just hop on and explore the city. It's great. What I enjoy doing in my limited free time as a crew member is, the token go-to cruise director answer there is sleeping. Anyone that follows me on social media knows that I'm passionate about photography, videography, anything creative. I'm a huge cuddler. And I do give cuddles to everyone, but mostly Geraldine. I love spending time with her. We're getting married in August. It makes sense. But time with nearest and dearest, connecting with family and friends on social media or messaging. I watch a lot of YouTube, and I don't have a niche. I don't discriminate. Of course, I love cruise content, but I like everything and anything in between. I love learning. That sounds wild because as a kid, school is like, meh. But now I love learning how being a crew member influences my personal life when it comes to friendships and relationships. That's a big question, and it's something that I've connected with a lot with my fellow cruise directors. Personally, for me, I feel really lucky. Being a crew member introduced me to my soon-to-be wife and forever person, right? I've got connections with people that I cherish dearly, but your typical network of friends, normally you go to school and you stay close with maybe a handful of people. For me, a lot of those friendships grew distant because I was away so much. There's one or two that have, stood the test of time. Family connections. I am quite useless at staying in touch and calling home. I'm trying to be better, but that's kind of challenging. I'm lucky because my mum is my biggest supporter. She is like my personal administrator. If mail comes through the door at home, she'll let me know. If there's anything from the bank or the council, my mum really looks after me. I'm so grateful for not only that support in my existence as an adult, but also the support, the unspoken support she gives to me is huge. Staying friends with people, staying current, the internet is a wonderful invention. Video calls, social media, it really, really helps for staying in touch with people. But it is challenging because you leave the real world, if you will, for anything up to 6 to 9 months. In my new job, I work 3 months on, and then I take 1 month off, which means my vacations come around a lot quicker than other crew members, but I just get that 1 month, which once you've traveled home and you've kind of got over your jet lag, it's limiting. I can't complain. I love the opportunities that have been presented to me. Romantically, being a crew member, it comes with a little separation. Where we can, Carnival try to keep crew members that are in relationships together. Where possible, the company will try to assign you contracts that either overlap or are at the same time. As a cruise director, it's a standalone position, which means there are certain operational needs that have to be considered when it comes to where people are assigned. And you don't always choose who you fall in love with. Matters of the heart, I believe, are non-negotiable. If it's a connection, it's a connection. And it's not always convenient. We've got cruise directors that are madly in love with other cruise directors. Kendall and Joey are getting married. Mike and Emma were both cruise directors. That's tough because they will never be able to work on a contract together because it's a standalone position. For myself, Geraldine's a playlist performer, which you look at the cast, you go, that's a cast of 8. But when you look at the cast, there's 4 male presenting and 4 female presenting. And within that, 2 of them are singers primarily that also dance, and 2 of them are dancers primarily that also sing. Geraldine is a dancer who sings, is one of 2. So she's very specialized in her role as well. The chances of our contracts lining up perfectly or being on the same ship is really tough. We've been together for over 5 years now. We met on the Splendor, we worked together again on the Celebration, and we've been here on Venezia. But our relationship has come with a lot of time apart, a lot of separation, a lot of distance. And that's tough. That's not for everyone. But the relationships that blossom in this environment, I think they really blossom. I think there is certain rewards to the challenges of long distance or periods of separation. And I tell Geraldine one day she's going to wish that I'd go away for 3 months at a time. You know, when we're both retired and we're grey and old and looking at each other, maybe it's been like 60 years, she's going to look at me and go, God, I wish he'd just go away and leave me alone for 3 months. So when I'm off the ship between contracts, visiting family is paramount, but I love to travel. And I know for someone that works in travel and tourism, to say I love to travel would be like a busman's holiday. I've been on cruises in my free time. I love traveling Southeast Asia. I love Indonesia. I love Japan. I love Thailand. I want to go to the Philippines. I want to go back to Vietnam because we cruised there on the Splendor, but I got a little snapshot. So I'd love to go back. Geraldine really wants to go to Africa and see some of the African nations. I'd love to see like the silverbacks. I think that would be out of this world. I like nature. I like travel. Of course, it goes hand in hand with photography and videography. If I had to like daydream, I'd love to travel the world and make like travel documentaries, even if it's just for me or my mum. I think that would be so cool. I love theatre. Growing up in theatre and being cruise director, of course, meant that I stepped away from what is traditional theatre, but I feel like I still remain within entertainment. But I love musicals. I love Broadway. I love the West End. I love regional and touring theatre. I like food too much. I wish I could talk about loving going to the gym as an answer to this question. I have a fleeting relationship with the gym. When I'm there, I'm there. And then I go through periods of not being there. And if this is a shot down to the waist, you can probably tell I've not been there. But I'm going to go back. It's 2025. I'm going back at least once. Of course, working on a cruise ship has influenced my view on travel and tourism. And I have two views on it. I think working this job has allowed me to live in duality with slightly perfect, moderate balance. So on one side, I think a travel purist would say commercial travel isn't travel. You need to go out into the hills and meet real people and savor local food. And when you bring 5,000 people to one location, that's not pure. And I see its merit. I do. I truly do. And I love a balance of both. I also think commercial tourism has its place. I see a lot of financial stimulation come into economies all around the world. There are so many jobs created by the cruise industry, and I think it's incredible. And I know from being a human that exists and that's online that there are certain communities that don't want mass tourism, and I respect that. I respect that as well. So how's it influenced my view? It gave me a great appreciation of the duality and balance between the two. That very purist form of travel and tourism, but that comes with its own rewards and its own challenges. I think there is a type of adventure for everyone. And if it's your first time stepping out of your country, I think a cruise is great because you're with a large group of people. You could take a pre-organized tour, go out and learn about the Mayan people, go and check out ruins. You could go ziplining and go on an adrenaline-fueled adventure. Explore, just walk around the streets of Old Town in San Juan and then get back on your ship and you're taken somewhere else, and the next day you're in Grand Turk or the Dominican Republic or Cozumel. And I think it's wonderful. You could then choose to go back if you wanted to and spend a little more time there. Yeah, I think working in the cruise industry, it's given me a respect for both methods of travel and everything that's in between. I think it's a beautiful sliding scale or spectrum of adventure, and there's so much out there. I'd say don't worry about being seasick. If you are, you are, and if you're not, you're not. But if you overthink the possibility of being, you're probably going to feel nauseous. I spent my first sail away walking around the ship worrying that I'd signed a contract for 6 months, and if I was seasick, having never been seasick before in my entire life, that it was going to be the most miserable 6 months of my life. It took me about a week to let go of the fear that I was going to be seasick. You will never make everybody happy. So you have to embrace the fact that you can only do your best. In my early career, I was really disappointed to learn if people hadn't had a great time or if they didn't like me. And as I've matured through my role, one of the things I had to do was accept that taste is subjective. You can only be true to yourself. You can only do your best. If you try to be everything to everyone, you are likely to either fail in your attempt or completely burn yourself out because you're not being authentic, you're not being genuine, and things become an act. And that's exhausting. You can never fail at being yourself. The one thing I look forward to the most when we set sail, it's that buzz, that rush from the crowd. And sometimes this is like, as we're setting sail, the sail away party is such a rush to have everybody there, so excited to be on vacation and to be the person that welcomes you. That's a big deal. I'm not the captain, right? It's not my ship, but for that split second of like, hey everyone, who's here to have a good time? Or if you're on vacation, let me hear you, let me feel you. That's electric. And that never gets old. Never, ever gets old. There are so many people that I need to acknowledge. So first things first, my family, my mom. I know you watch everything that goes on the internet. I love you. Thank you so much. And Geraldine as well. Without the pair of you, I don't know where I'd be right now. John, you're probably not watching this because you're far too busy answering questions, but I'm going to shout you out anyway. John Heald, you are an incredible man. You're an incredible ambassador for this brand and an inspiration to many. Christine, thanks for my job. The Fun Squad team on the Venezia right now, you are unstoppable. You are the engine that drives all of the fun. And I'm just lucky to hold the microphone. Shout out to Chris Salazar Donkey and Erin, my fellow fleet cruise directors. I'm looking forward to coming home to you soon. Our guests, I always say to the Fun Squad that are looking to develop into a leadership role, what's the one thing that a leader needs? And that's people that follow. So if you followed me on Facebook or Instagram, YouTube, if you've been on multiple cruises with me and you're a supporter or a follower, thank you. Because if I don't have you, then I'm not here either. So to all of you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I ran into the sea and my boxer shorts came out. And then I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to look like I've peed. So as a TMI, I was the naked man in the bush at half moon. Putting the moon in half moon. That was me.